Good morning, everybody. It's David Barry, your National Relocation Director. We're on episode 4 today of Money Matters because it does. And my two partners here, Terry and Monty, they will tell you that money does matter. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good
Morning.
day. Good day. Beautiful day in Orlando today.
Yeah, we're going to jump right in. I know Monty, he's got that big smile on his face. He's hearing news. There's always up to the minute news. Monty just stays on top of all the things that are going on with money and houses and interest rates. So, Monty, what do you got for us today?
Yeah, well, I've got some corrections, some things that you may hear in the media that you need to know what's behind it so that you're not swayed into believing something that is not the truth. Like they say, don't believe everything you read or everything you hear. So big news last week was that the progress towards that Fed 2% inflation target is currently stalled. We didn't make a lot of progress in April, and the signed contracts on existing homes actually fell. But we're going to break that down today, what that actually means. But those are kind of the two big headlines out of last week.
Awesome. And Terry, how's the weather going down there in Florida today?
Well, it's a beautiful day in Central Florida, but I'm most excited to hear about Monty's comments about the markets last week, where he has heard that interest rates are. And Monty, can you also, real quick, most people think the Fed controls mortgage rates. I know they influence it, but can you just speak to that real quick?
Yeah, so they set the Fed funds rate, and so that's the very first topic we're going to talk about here, and that's that inflation is not heating up, but it's also not cooling off. That's what we meant by stalled. So April's personal consumption expenditures, that's PCE, you may hear that, it showed that headline inflation actually rose 0.3% from March, with the year-over-year reading holding steady at about 2.7. So we're at about 2.7. They want that to be at 2.0. Core PCE, that's what the Fed's preferred method is to determine inflation. That strips out all the volatile food and energy prices. That also rose 0.2% monthly. The year over year was at 2.8. So we're 2.7, 2.8. That means we're really still not to where the Fed wants that to be. Now, the Fed funds rate, that's what we're talking about here, is the rate at which banks can borrow overnight. And so that's what the Fed does determine. And so they've raised that 11 times between March of 2022 and July of 2023. They were doing that to slow down the economy. They wanted to make borrowing more expensive and lowering the demand for goods so there'd be price pressure and inflation hopefully would shrink. They've held those rates as we've seen since September. They have not increased those because inflation has been making good progress lower since last year. And until recently, it was still making good progress. So they've emphasized that they don't want to cut rates until they're confident that inflation is moving sustainably towards that 2% target. What's interesting is that a sharp rise in the unemployment rate, which we've seen in this narrow range between 3.7 and 3.9 since last August, a sharp rise in that unemployment rate really could impact it, and the Fed could decide to cut rates sooner because they're given a dual mandate. That's what you call it, like two main jobs: price stability, maximum employment. So that's what we want to keep our eyes on when we're thinking about where the Fed is with cutting rates or raising rates. You're right, they don't determine the interest rate, but they do set that Fed funds rate. The unemployment rate for May will be reported this Friday. So we'll have more updates next Monday on unemployment.
Well, speaking of the rates, Monty, I'm so glad that we have you as a resource because I got to tell you, I think this is the most confused that I've ever seen the media. Half the media is saying, yeah, there's going to be cuts in September. Half the media is saying there's not going to be any cuts again until 2025. And I know it's got to be confusing to our members. They've got to be super confused. They don't know who to believe or what to listen to. Can you touch on what's that all about?
Yeah, for sure. At the end of 2023, we had a lot of news about they were going to cut the rates, super high percentage. Even I thought it in March. We really thought that's where they were going because, as we just said, inflation was moving the right direction. We thought, hey, we are clearly on track to hit that 2%. So they are going to drop those rates. So there was a lot of news into 2023. Rates were getting way better, but it's about to happen, guys. It's so exciting. It slowed down because it wasn't making as quick of progress as they wanted, and the Fed's being so conservative in everything that they're doing. We like to say they're driving, looking in the rearview mirror, like turned around, seeing where is inflation, and they're looking at a 12-month average. And so they're saying, when do we get that 2.0 on a 12-month average? Well, by the time you get to that, that means you are going so fast in the other direction that you're going to need to cut quickly, because you're going to realize, oh my goodness, we are going really, really fast, and there's a curve right up ahead, and we were wanting to keep going quick to make good time until we got to the curve. Well, we are in the curve right now. So if that analogy makes sense, it's hard to know what they're going to do exactly, but all 19 members have still voted that they are going to cut rates this year. That is going to happen. We've also got the election year, which statistically, historically always shows a drop in gas prices and in interest rates. So also, not to be political, but you got a couple of guys running here that are really polarizing and are both going to want these rates to go down because it's going to make them both look better. So I feel like that's going to be all but certain. Just hang in there. What I am seeing is people still getting great deals on houses. They're still buying with equity. So to every negative, there's a positive.
Right.
But yeah.
That's great advice, Monty. Thank you so much for sharing. I know that it's confusing for all of our members out there, and we just want to give you the information. So what else do you got for us, Monty?
Well, to your point, we saw that impact, the confusion of people. We saw the frustration when we got the pending home sales for April. Those really took a dive. They dropped 7.7% from March to April, according to the National Association of Realtors. That's well below the estimates of just a modest decline. Sales were also at 7.4, lower than what they were a year earlier. So that report measures signed contracts on existing homes. That's why it's an important forward-looking indicator for closings of these homes. When we measure those existing home sales report that we talked about before, that pending home sales index, we just saw it take a big turn in April. After a really strong reading in March, we saw it really come off. And so what the National Association of Realtors chief economist, Lawrence Yun, said, his quote was, "The impact of escalating interest rates throughout April dampened home buying even with more inventory in the market." So we are seeing more people list their houses, which is exciting. You got more to pick from. But with those rates going up like they did in April, we saw people kind of pull back and take a pause. So.
And then obviously each week we like to talk about, we know that we have a lot of our members, you guys are in the Leaving California group, so let's face it, you're really seriously considering leaving. Maybe you could touch a little bit on the timing, and is it the right time, or should they wait till 2025? What are you telling your clients, and what advice would you give to people that are thinking about, should we do it now or should we wait?
Yeah, no, I would say you should do it now. One good indication was this past month, we had a record-breaking month. And so there's a lot of people still doing it. And of those people that are doing it, they're getting more appreciation, more equity in that house. And so that was the other report that came out last week, the Case-Shiller Home Price Index. That's the group that measures appreciation over the nation. They really are called the gold standard for appreciation. That's what everybody takes and says, well, are home values going up or not? And so those went up nationally, 0.3% from February to March. That's the report we got out. And that's 6.5% year over year. So if you bought a house in March of 2023 versus in 2024, you got 6.5% equity just in that 1 year. So let's say you put 5% down, that means you made over 100% return on your investment. That's awesome. That's why it's a great time to buy right now. I saw in the group this week several comments. I commented on a few of them. People leaving, people moving to other places, wanting more information. What I would encourage people to do is reach out to David, reach out to Terry, ask these guys. It was funny last night, I even saw a comment about Orlando where Terry is. They're like, hey, can anybody comment on Orlando? And I thought, oh my goodness, Terry Gilliam, the founder of Leaving California, would be the absolute expert in that place. So reach out to me, reach out to David, reach out to Terry. You're not bothering us. You can certainly send us a DM and say, hey, I'm curious, what about me? Is it a good time for me? Because I think we hear these comments at a big level, what do you call that? The micro and the macro, at the macro level. And we think, it's a good time for other people, but it's not a good time for me. It is a good time. So further on that, we saw FHFA, that's the other group that we trust for appreciation. They also said the same thing, 6.7% year over year. increase. So everybody is agreeing that it's a good time, that appreciation is there, and that's what you care about. You care about that appreciation. So,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Well, we're so lucky to have Terry Gilliam, the founder, and he actually is becoming, I don't know, for those of you that are new to our show and for people that are just tuning in for the first time, I don't know if you've had a chance to meet Terry. He's become a great friend of mine, and we're really lucky to have him. He is the face. He knows everything about what's going on in California, and he helps all of us get out of California. So, Terry, what's going on in California? Is things getting better over in California lately?
Depends on your point of view. Certainly getting better for some people. Well, I saw several things this week that I'd like to discuss. So first of all, I found that most of the jobs, significant number of jobs that have been added in the last year have been added in 2 states, Texas and Florida. I found that fascinating. In addition, let's also remember that Pods came out with their survey. I think today they announced it. The vast majority of people leaving states is California. Now, that may be under the radar. The mainstream media doesn't want you to know that there's still a ton of people leaving California because they want people to think that those policies that Gavin Newsom and the legislature implement are the right policies. But the reality is people are leaving in droves. And where are they moving? They're moving to the southern red states. And so, as Monty's point was, look, you may think that you're going to get a better deal next year, but if everybody's moving to Texas, Tennessee, and Florida, guess what? They can't build them fast enough there. Those prices are going to go up. So why not go ahead and sell now, buy now if you're not happy. Now, if you're happy in California, by all means, please stay. Please stay. But if you're not happy, now is the time to get the heck out of there, because next year, I got to tell you, I believe that Texas, Tennessee, and Florida, and David, after our tour, I think all of those southern states are going to continue to attract a lot of people. You know, we were in Greenville, South Carolina. Greenville, South Carolina has exploded because the number of people who are moving there. So anyway, I think that's a big factor, is that you're going to start seeing appreciation move up a lot faster in those southern red states than you are in places like California. So get out while the getting's good.
Didn't you tell me that, Terry, that that you saw gas under $3 in Florida? I saw something on the news the other day that the taxes on gas in California is $2 a gallon. So they're getting close to being what the cost is in the South just for a regular gallon of gas, just in taxes in California.
Well, yeah, I know in Texas, the gas is under $3 a gallon. But here's what California is talking about that's also coming out into the news. California, because they're talking people into buying these electric vehicles, they're losing a lot of gas tax money because those those cars use electricity. So guess what? They're short on their expected inflow of gas tax money. So they continue to raise the gas tax. Every July 1st, the gas tax goes up in California. That's in stone. That's going to continue. The second part of it is now California is going to test a per mile charge. Right now, they're talking about maybe just doing it for EVs, but I can assure you they are not just going to do it for EVs. So not only are you paying the highest gas taxes in the country, the highest state income tax, and the highest of this and that, the highest taxed state in the country by far, well, except maybe New York competes with them. And so now you're going to pay per mile tax, which is ridiculous because they force housing to be so expensive. People have to live an hour, 2 hours from work. So they're having to commute both ways. And now they're talking about a 30-cent per mile charge on top of that, which is just, again, what they're doing is they're eliminating the middle class. There's going to be no middle class left who can afford that. So it's just, like I said, get out while the getting's good.
Well, again, this is our Money Matters show. It's episode 4. And as promised, as your national relocation director, I promised that I would give tips. We talk about this on our weekly show that we do. And the biggest thing is doing your research, looking at these cities. And Terry and I just got back from this amazing tour, and we saw so many great cities, and we saw smiling faces and people waving and saying hello. And so the quality of life is so much better. Just make sure you do your research. And by having this network that Terry has created, we have 350 realtors. We have our national lender who joins us every week. I mean, we have the resources where we can help you make the right decisions. And if you're on the fence, at least do this for yourself. Reach out to one of us and we'll give you the information, and then you can make an educated decision. Way too often we see people that are making decisions that they just don't have all the information. And this information is free from all of our resources that we have. So in closing, Monty, do you have any closing thoughts about the show? And what
I
about Money
do.
Matters? Go ahead.
Yeah, two things. One is what we're going to see this week. We're going to get more appreciation data tomorrow from CoreLogic. That's going to be interesting. But the biggest thing we're going to see, the thing we'll talk about the most next Monday, will be all the labor sector news. We've got multiple things coming in this week: job openings, private payrolls, unemployment claims, and then the unemployment rate. We'll get that on Friday. So that's going to dominate this week, the markets and what you hear about interest rates, and then we'll break that all down for you next week. The second thing was related to leaving California, a post I read last night about sweet family that cannot sell their house in California. So frustrating. They've done everything they know to do, and it's still not selling. I want to say the problem is you don't have the right realtor. If you were to ask me who to use, I would give you somebody that I would bet money would sell your house in 30 days. The quality of realtor makes a huge difference in how fast you can leave California and how much money you leave California with. So reach out to Terry, reach out to David, reach out to me. Don't just use any old realtor. You've got to use the best of the best, and it will make a huge difference to your family.
Amen.
That's great advice. Terry, any closing thoughts for our 4th episode?
I don't think so, David. I think Monty's covered most everything financially. I would say if you are considering getting out, there's no better time. I'm telling you, just wait till this election's over. You're going to see, I think there's going to be a mass exodus no matter who wins for president. And the president doesn't run my life, but I know most of you feel that way. But I think it's going to determine a lot of policies in California that most of us aren't going to agree with.
All right. Well, episode 4 in the books. Thank you all for tuning in and listening. And we're here to help. We're here to guide you through through this process. We hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next Monday. Take care.